What's up, all my folks out in YouTube land? Daryl, also known as the Finisher. Today, we're talking about commercial work as a handyman. Yes, there's an option to do commercial work, and it can be lucrative. They're good. They're positives. Or there are pros and cons, right? There are positives, negatives, whatever. I did it for a while. I did it with a few companies, and it was lucrative, and it can be lucrative if this is what you're into. Wasn't for me, but that doesn't mean I can't tell you about it. All right, so let's get into it. By the way, shout out to Chris in the comments that gave me the idea about doing this video, because he was like, nobody really talks about the commercial work as a handyman. So I'm telling you, I stay in the comments, man. I'm always in there. All right, so shout out to Chris, man. Appreciate that. All right, first things first. How do we define commercial work? Well, most of the time, commercial work is going to be stores, right? Industrial is more like plants and things of that nature, places where they manufacture things. A lot of times they have their own in-house maintenance or whatever. But stores are a little different, because you might walk into a store and say, man, that ceiling tile has water damage on it, right? Why doesn't an employee just take that ceiling tile out and put a new one in? Well, it's because the store doesn't want the liability of their cashiers on 12-foot ladders or scaffolding or something like that. And if they fall, then they got a huge lawsuit. And one thing I learned early on, the biggest thing that cause stores to lose money is safety issues. You might have a person that steals a little piece of candy bar or whatever, and okay, you don't want them to do that. But if a person slips and falls, that one thing might be $20,000-$30,000. They don't want that liability, right? They don't want that, especially with their employees. So they hire third-party companies that for maintenance, that basically handle all their maintenance. Those third-party companies, you have some that have staff, that have maintenance staff that they send out. But a lot of them, they reach out and find subcontractors like you. That's where you come in, right? Now, how do you find them? I have no idea, right? But this is what I say. They'll find you if you have a presence, right? If you have an online presence, they will find you. I mean, early on, I don't get as many calls now because I think a lot of them have called me. And at this point, I don't really do the commercial work at all. Unless it's like an emergency or something they really need. It's going to be quick, a one-off thing. But I used to get calls all the time. And that's where they'll start. Do you do commercial work? Yes. And some of them, it's just a one-off thing. That's all they want. I had a call one time from, I don't know the name of the companies, and I'm not really going to get into the names of the companies here anyway. But I had a company call me, and it was like a Dr. Eyes. I don't know. I don't have glasses. So it's Dr. Eyes and Mr. Eyeglass or something like that. And all it was there's an alarm going off in the store. I guess whoever the manager was out of town or something, but they couldn't get in contact with anybody. And the store next door was calling them. They had the same maintenance company because it was one of those rows of stores or whatever. And I guess all of them had the same maintenance company. So they called me and asked me if I could go out. I went out. They gave me the code to get in, checked the alarm. Everything was fine, reset it. And it was good. They just paid me right. They literally, when I called them back, said everything was good, took care of it. They paid me with a credit card right over the phone right then. So they weren't looking for a long-term person. They might have had a long-term person already. Who knows, right? But then other ones will be looking for a long-term person, and that might be where you come in. Now, what kind of work would you be doing for a commercial maintenance company? Man, you could be doing everything from, I've gone in where I've just changed ceiling tiles, and there's been 40 ceiling tiles and a bunch of all over the store, and some of them are water damaged, and I go in there and I set up a ladder and a scaffold, and I got to get there like 4 a.m, so I'm not in there with customers walking all around and all that, or I'm gonna have to work in a pharmacy area. And I've had times where they got shelves collapsing and stuff, where you got to build up some kind of structure to hold the shelves up. It's a lot of different things. Those, they locking up everything now, even deodorant in some of these stores. So those little glass, the locks that they put on those, sometimes those go bad. So you got to get them off and then figure out how to put a new one on. And I've had to do that, right? If they could go with shoe and they don't have to call another person, call a locksmith, they'll just go with shoe. Just hinges on the doors, the commercial hinges. It's all those things, man. Most of the time, it wasn't big jobs. It might have been that the paper towel holder in the bathroom kept falling off the wall. You know what I mean? Because somebody didn't know how to put it up there right, and whoever the last guy was rigged it up. So now they call him. It's stuff like that. A lot of times, the awning blew off on the outside or whatever. They got people to do their signs. They got people who do doors. They might have a locksmith. They got the electric doors or something like that. They'll have people for that. But there's all sorts of little things you could be doing in there. So say you get a call from a commercial maintenance company and they tell you the list of stores. I've had some where they had a bunch of outlet stores. So you basically had an outlet that's not too far from where I live, and they did half the stores in the outlets. Like, it was crazy. Like, man, you could have just stayed working right then and there. I had other ones I told y'all before. I did a lot of Walgreens. They were looking for essentially, I didn't know it at the time, but they were looking for a full-time company to do the maintenance. A lot of them have a certain rate that they want to go with. It could be an hourly rate. They'll ask you up front what your rate is. It's kind of almost like a warranty company. They'll ask you, try to get a feel for what your rates are. Some of them will just come out and tell you straight up. I had one come out and tell me, look, we do a $50 trip charge and then $45 an hour after that. That's what we pay. And it was like, that's not bad. Don't get it twisted, man. Like, there's a lot of people not making that. So I don't want to get out here and people hear you say $45, $50 an hour and you're like, man, I wouldn't get out of bed for that. Nah, I get out, you might want to get out of bed for it, but if you're established, you can make more than that, or you can, this might not be the way you want to do it. But I'm telling you, it's an absolute viable option. So some of them will want that hourly charge, right? Some of them, then there are other companies, and a lot of what I dealt with was when you go to the job, there's a trip charge that they have a set trip charge, and then you get to the job, they have an hourly charge or whatever, and it might be what you told them it was. Like for me, what I told them it was, that's what it was. But depending on what I needed to do, then I might have to give them an estimate. Sometimes you might be able to go in and fix the problem. Other times, you're gonna have to assess it, give them an estimate, and then come back later and set something up, because you're always gonna have to figure out who's on duty and the manager, and because you got to get it signed off. So you still have the estimate process, but now this is where the cons start to come in for me, and it's about the whole check-in process. And man, it was a bit much for me. Most of them have a system, and they call it an IVR, like you IVR in, and it's basically a check-in system. It's similar to warranty work, but it's a little extra. Warranty work, if you've done any kind of warranty work or dealt with like appliance repair or anything like that, they send you the work order. You contact the customer, set up an appointment with the customer, you go out, you assess the job, then you contact the warranty to see if they approve the cost of the repair or not. And so that's how that works. Now, the commercial work is it can be a little extra, because the IVR process is like you get to the job, then like when you get there, before you go in, you have to IVR in. That means you have to sign on to this system, and most of them have their own app, or they have an app that they work with. You sign on to the system, and then you still got to call somebody at dispatch, and that person IVRs you in. Then you go into the store, and you assess the job or do the job or whatever. Then you got to call back the IVR, let them know, are you going to do the job? How much is it going to cost? Or is this something you have to come back for? And it was, then maybe you got to come up with an estimate. And then when you leave, you got to IVR out. So you got to call them and make sure that they sign you out, or, it's going to mess up your pay. You might not get paid. And then the next time, if you have to go back again, you don't get the trip charge twice. You go back, you got IVR back in, and it's just, so if you're used to dealing with customers straight up, it's a little tough. They caught me early, right? That's a lot of times what happens. They caught me early in the game. I was in my first year, and it sounded great. And it wasn't a bad thing. Like I said, if you're the type that it's just like being a subcontractor or dealing with property managers, the issue ends up being that when they want you to work. When they call you, they want you to get their work done. Now, it wasn't sold to me like that, though. When I first started, it was like, well, we respect you. You know, they're trying to get you in the door. They're going to be all nice. And, we respect you. We're humble. And we understand that you have your own your own customers. And, if we're not going to, we don't need you to prioritize our work above your own. We don't expect that. Yeah. They didn't expect it at first. But you imagine doing Walgreens, right? Drive down the street and throw a rock and hit a Walgreens. They're everywhere, right? Walgreens is everywhere. So once I started and I started going, man, the next thing I know, I was getting work order after work order. And I was like, whoa, I have customers that I'm trying to build my own business up. Then it switched over to like, hey, how come you're not getting to this job? We sent you it a couple of days ago. I was like, but I got customers. Maybe I can go on the weekend and I found myself working like 7 days a week, going to Walgreens 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, trying to figure out how I can get the work done. And it just didn't work out for me. But they were flooding me with work. So if I just wanted to just do their work, I could have just stayed that way and probably called in a couple of other stores and just done that. I mean, you can do that. I personally, and it's just a thing, it's kind of like being an employee and having one person in control, one customer, right? Your boss or whoever your employer is, one customer that's gonna let you know if you're gonna be able to pay your mortgage next month, right? I don't like that. I like having a bunch of customers. If I lose one, then I try to get another one, right? And I keep a roster full of customers, and I'm gonna just get calls, and I like doing it that way. If somebody decides that tomorrow they're just gonna hate me, it's not the biggest deal in the world, right? It doesn't stop the show. So that's what I like. But I get it, man. I mean, if you're the type that not everybody wants to deal with that, wants to deal with the customers and wants to deal with having to advertise and promote and all the things that you got to do and even working in people's houses and how delicate you have to be and all this. Everybody don't want to do that. And I understand. So some people just want to be subcontractors, and they're just good with that because they don't, they just get to work, all the marketing, all that stuff. They don't have to do none of it. That makes perfect sense to me. You know what I mean? So it's definitely a viable option. The last thing about it that I think, you should know about is the payment schedule. So let's talk about it. Now, the payment process is definitely something you should know about. Most of the time, it's going to be either a net 30 or net 45 or a net 60. I've had one company I worked for was a net 60, where that means from the time you turn the work order in, it's usually the turnaround is 30 days or 45 days or 60 days. And that's nothing new. I mean, it's not like if you accepted that you'd be the first person to ever do that. That's a regular thing that companies do. You just got to decide if it's something that you want to do. Like I personally like getting paid upon completion. It's only really an issue in the beginning because you got to have a little bit of a war chest because, in the beginning, you're going to be putting all the money out and you got to be with a reputable company that you got to make sure you're going to get paid because I've had ones where I did the work up front and it took 4 or 5 months to get paid. I've had other ones where, we had some issues with the paperwork and who to send it to because they got this person got it, this person didn't. Oh, it was in somebody's spam folder. It was all sort of things with the invoice. But eventually we got it straight, and I got paid, man. And they did bulk payment, so it was cool. It actually was kind of cool where next thing you know, you look in your account and there's $2,500 in there, like all of a sudden. I mean, that kind of stuff is, and you're doing other work, and then now you're on a routine. So it works out, but you got to be ready for it. You're gonna have to pay everything out of pocket in the beginning, right? All your materials, everything's gonna come out of your pocket. So, yeah. But as long as you know that, I'm telling you, it's a viable option. It's not. To me, it's just like being property management. It's a viable option. A lot of these things they're all options. They're all things you can do. Just because it didn't work for me doesn't mean it won't work for you. It works for somebody. They paying somebody out here, right? All these stores you drive past, you're going down the street. Most of these stores have maintenance companies that are using subcontractors. So you find your way in. I'm telling you, man, it could be a beautiful thing for you. I don't know, but that's for you to decide. If you got any other questions, man, hit me up in the comments. I'm always in there. Whatever questions you got. Let me know if I can answer them. I definitely will. Other than that, stay safe, be blessed, and remember, if the trades don't work, nothing else does.